Welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. Let's talk about Ben Affleck's Batman. Now, I spent a lot of time dunking on Zack Snyder's DCEU films because his take on Superman was misguided and wrong. But I love his version of Batman. Ben Affleck brings an intensity to this role that no other actor has been able to match, and I think he's high in the running for best Batman of all time. Now, I am going to explain what I think went wrong with his take on the character and the many reasons why I think he stands above all his fellow Waynes, right up until this.
Kill Martha!
That's unforgivable. First, let's talk about the other live-action Batman actors. This will give us an idea of how to frame Ben Affleck's legacy. I'm just talking about the people who played Batman as an adult, not a kid. Adam West was fun. He understood that he was in a live-action comic strip, but he approached all of this goofiness around him with this deadpan nature that grounded this silly world.
What people are always in a hurry?
Russian people? Russians!
Right again.
Michael Keaton brought detachment and broodiness. He was the original sad Batman. Val Kilmer struck a line between the fun and the broodiness, while George Clooney, well, he went through his movie realizing he looked ridiculous, but unlike Adam West, he never embraced the silliness of it.
Why are all the gorgeous ones homicidal maniacs? Is it me?
Enough.
Now, Christian Bale was arguably the best Batman, but his version of Bruce Wayne was always looking for a way out, like being Batman was kind of a last resort. For him, being the Batman was a burden. For Affleck, being Batman was a way for him to release his burdens on the underworld of Gotham. This is a Batman who is addicted to being Batman. This life is all he has left, and he has let it consume him. JJ Jr. on Twitter pointed out that Bale was really playing three characters, Batman, Bruce, and Playboy Bruce, while Ben Affleck is playing a single, bitter, angry asshole. I think that Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice gets Batman very right, and Superman very wrong. So let me explain why I love this version of Batman. First of all, I gotta plug how much better the extended edition of Batman vs. Superman is. It gives way more context to why these two want to fight, and it presents us with the viewpoints of ordinary people. So when I talk about Affleck's Batman, I'm really talking about the one that we see in this version. Now, since 1989, we haven't gotten many variations of Batman on screen. For many fans, the definitive version is from the 90s animated series, which refined the gothic vision of Tim Burton's films. And apart from Clooney, they've pretty much all followed the same template, a haunted dark knight with a heart of gold. So maybe by 2016, audiences were a little tired of Batman movies. So we got a Batman who was tired of being Batman. Gomez Andromeda on Twitter makes a good point. I think that most people forget that all the Snyderverse heroes were meant to be a bit broken when we meet them, so they could have a reason to form the Justice League because together they were stronger. It's a great point. And DC's Joshua Lapin wrote, Affleck portrayed a Bruce Wayne who had hit rock bottom and eventually found his way back into the light. Affleck's Batman was a broken man in search of redemption. Now, The Dark Knight Rises also gave us an older Batman, but that Batman was mostly grieving the loss of Rachel, and the city had moved on without him. That movie's Batman is kind of like Scotty returning to the Enterprise. He just feels outdated and useless.
The Enterprise. Show me the bridge of the Enterprise, you chattering piece of...
Now, but under Affleck's Batman, Gotham City hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse, and it's also dragging him down into the muck. That's a Batman we've never seen before, and Affleck nails it to a T. So look, brief aside here. Starting with the origin story wasn't the best idea, because it was repeating information that we already knew from previous movies, and that made us assume that this Batman would be the same as the others. We even got the pearls! The pearls! And the only reason this origin is here is to remind us his mom's name is
Martha!
Which, geez. Now, this scene does show that this Batman is lacking moral clarity. He has to spend his entire life negotiating between his two selves. Even as Bruce Wayne, he's trying to improve Wayne Enterprises to fund his career as Batman, which is actually something we don't talk about very much, how Bruce Wayne is one of the smartest business people on the planet because he recognizes a good deal. And me, I love getting a good deal, which is why I like using Deal Dash, the sponsor of this video. DealDash.com has hundreds of auctions each day. You can win just about any item you can think of. TVs, jewelry, clothes, furniture, computers, even cars, and you can get them for up to 90% off. So here's how it works. You find an item you like on the site, and there are hundreds of auctions to choose from every day. So each time you bid, it raises the price by 1 cent. Then the other bidders have 10 seconds to place their own bid. If no one does, you win the auction. Plus, shipping is always free.
Even if you buy a car or like a really nice motorbike or a sofa couch,
Yeah, Doug, shipping is always free, and there's a 90-day money-back guarantee.
But how can companies sell items for so little money?
Well, a lot of your favorite big box retailers throw away perfectly good inventory every day. So Deal Dash partners directly with brands and inventory liquidators to get great savings on brand new products. Then they pass those savings on to the Deal Dash community. Now they do charge a small fee to bid in the auction, but you can use the Buy It Now option, which lets you get the item for the listed price, and then you get all of your bids back, and you can use them in a different auction. So go to DealDash.com and enter the promo code ScreenCrush to get 100 bids with your first bid pack purchase. That's DealDash.com and enter the promo code ScreenCrush and start bidding today. Now, back to Batman. I do love the dream opening from the funeral where he flies. That's something weird and new. It's an indication this is going to be a different kind of Batman. And this line,
"In the dream, they took me to the light. A beautiful lie."
is also about Superman. He seems like he's bringing humanity into the light, but Bruce sees this as a beautiful lie. This is also establishing that the path of the Bat will not lead him into redemption. This is a Batman who is failing at his job and he's looking for meaning. He's looking for someone to hit. And he finds someone, Superman. The sequence of Metropolis being destroyed from Bruce's point of view is as great as any sequence in any Batman movie. It takes the numb gray spectacle from Man of Steel and it makes it real. We see that this is a Bruce who cares about the people working for him. The anguish is all over his face. He finds a little girl who has just become an orphan like him.
You know what? We're gonna find your mom. Where is she?
So in that moment, Bruce is back to being a child again, in the alley, looking up at his parents' killers. He feels as powerless as he did as a little boy. And just like that, in this moment, adult Bruce looks up and makes a vow to never feel powerless again. But, as Alfred puts it,
the rage, the feeling of powerlessness that turns good men cruel.
you know, it's funny, people like Batman because he's just an ordinary guy, no powers, and we think this makes him relatable.
You got no powers, no offense.
But really, he's extremely unrelatable. In all of these movies and comics, he's never tired of fighting his endless war on crime. It's the relentless pursuit that defines him in every incarnation. This isn't relatable for anyone because none of us can stick to anything that single-mindedly for that many years. Whereas this Batman is tired. He's seen the worst of humanity and he's fucking over it. He thinks that it's only a matter of time before Superman becomes corrupted and turns evil, because in his world, everyone becomes corrupted. And slowly, over the years, he has been corrupted too, because this Batman is only as good as Gotham City allows him to be, and his Gotham is the worst of humankind. In other movies, Batman is portrayed as a symbol of hope in Gotham City. In the Nolan films, his fans even cosplay as him. And in Dark Knight Rises, the Resistance use bat symbols to coordinate their efforts. In all the movies, when the bat signal hits the sky, it's a way for the people of Gotham to know that they have a dark knight watching over them. But in this movie, ordinary people are terrified of the Batman. That's why he's introduced like the monster in a horror film. In the theatrical version, we see that he's branding people, but we don't get the full scope of what this means. First of all, the guy he brands is a piece of shit pedophile and human trafficker. The cops don't seem to mind, and it makes their job easier and gives them time to enjoy the game.
7, do you copy?
10-4, we're on it.
But for the criminals, this brand is a death sentence. And this guy gets killed, making Batman a killer by proxy. But more on that criminal later. When this Batman arrives home, it's not a glorious operatic moment like it is in the Tim Burton films. It's not badass. He's a guy getting home from a bad day at the office. He drinks, he takes meds, he's shattered. The mansion, his family's legacy, it's been destroyed, and he never even bothered to repair it. Instead, he surrounds himself with a monument to his failure, the suit of a Robin that the Joker killed. And when I say monument to his failure, I don't mean it's because he failed to save Robin. I think that, to this version of Batman, he's starting to believe that his real failure was not killing the Joker years ago. As we discussed in another video, the reason Batman doesn't kill is simple. He has to believe that anyone can come back from the darkness, that anyone can be redeemed. Because if the Joker can come back from that darkness, then so can he. But Affleck's Batman is starting to believe that's not true. That's why he kills. He's in a free fall. Deep down he knows it. He becomes fixated on Superman because he believes that this is the only way he can be redeemed. Maybe he can't save himself, but he can save the world.
I'm older now than my father ever was. This may be the only thing I do that matters.
His fear of Superman is enhanced by his vision of the future where Superman has broken bad. He sees that all of his worst fears have come to pass. So, if Bruce knew for certain that the Joker was going to use a nuclear bomb to destroy Gotham City, then he would kill Joker to stop that from happening. No hesitation. He feels the same way about Superman destroying the entire world. So, when Bruce decides to kill Superman, it's actually the culmination of failing to make a difference for 20 years. He's middle-aged, and he wants to do something that matters before he dies. But he's had tunnel vision for all these decades, only focusing on his quest, and this makes him not able to see how much he has changed along the way. Batman is becoming a villain. The scenes of Luthor entering the ship are intercut with Bruce training to kill Superman, to emphasize that they are both villains. Luthor sinks down into the water, just as Bruce sinks lower into his cave. The extended edition also shows the human consequences of Bruce's tunnel vision. The man he branded had a daughter. He had people who loved him.
But I know what he did. But he was a father. He was that too.
Now the old Batman, the one from the animated series, would have done everything to help this guy, to see that he had the chance to be redeemed.
I thought you were the Batman. I ran up against him once, forced me to get my life together. Now I've got this great job. Even Mr. Wayne knows me.
Now I do have one gripe watching all of this, and that's that Snyder borrowed so heavily from the comic book Dark Knight Returns. That Batman is very different from this one. He's just as bitter, but for different reasons, and he doesn't kill. That comic climaxes with the Superman fight, but that fight is built on decades of continuity that these men have known each other for that entire time. For instance, this line where he says,
I bet your parents taught you that you mean something, that you're here for a reason. My parents taught me a different lesson. Dying in the gutter for no reason at all.
Now in the comic, that makes sense. Bruce knew Clark very well. But here, Batman has already assumed that Superman didn't have a family. That's why he's surprised to hear that he had a mom named Martha. Now, as dumb and clumsy as the Martha moment is, it does serve a purpose. It breaks Bruce loose from his tunnel vision and allows him to have empathy once again. And like I said before, a younger Batman wouldn't have killed because he had hope for the criminals, which is interpreted as hope for himself. But this version has lost all his ability to empathize with people. He can only think of his mission. This Batman only cares about assuaging his own guilt. He's Batman because it would pain him to not be Batman. It's a drug he can't give up. The Martha moment shows him that Superman is like him, an orphan with a mommy named Martha.
Martha won't die tonight.
God, it's so stupid and poorly done, but it does redeem him and give us the best Batman action scene of all time. So let's move away from the characterization of this Batman and look at the more superficial aspects of this portrayal. The suit is great. It feels like armor, but it's flexible and allows for mobility during a fight, unlike Michael Keaton's suit, which moved more like a condom dipped in candle wax. We see Batman take a bullet to the head and keep going. This fight is electric, kinetic, it is perfectly directed, and I love it. And the scene works so well because Affleck's Batman is always angry. Always angry. He's the only Batman who seems to genuinely love beating the shit out of people. Well, I mean, at least until Robert Pattinson's. Affleck is always looking for an excuse to lose his temper. He wants to find a bad guy so he can let off some steam, and it shows in this fight. And you know what else? The voice modulator. He doesn't put on a silly gravel voice.
This city just showed you that it's full of people ready to believe in good.
And this version sounds way more badass.
You're not brave. Men are brave.
That line is perfection. Now I will say that I absolutely hate that Batman ever uses a gun in these fights. I can't stand it. Batman has evolved over the decades to hate guns. Now in the 30s he started off by using one, but now he thinks of them as evil.
But not with these. These are loud and clumsy. These are the weapons of cowards.
But Affleck using a gun does show how far he's fallen, and Zack Snyder's Justice League shows how he was redeemed. Now I'm not going to go into ZSJL too much. I love that we see Bruce's character growth as he assembles the Justice League and learns to broaden his worldview. He originally made a vow on his parents' grave, but in this movie he's honoring a vow that he made on Superman's grave.
I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death.
He wants to atone for his sins by raising Superman from the dead. And to mark that his character comes full circle, John tells him,
Your mother and father would be proud.
meaning that he can actually rest easy and be proud that he's honored their memory. Finally, I want to talk about why this version was so poorly received and why I think it was doomed from the start. Ben Affleck is a really talented guy. He's got acting chops. I mean, just look at the 1997 indie Chasing Amy.
And I know that you think of me as just a friend, and crossing that line is the furthest thing from an option you would ever consider, but I had to say it.
And then his charm carried Armageddon the next year. He's an incredibly talented director, but the worst thing that ever happened to his career was his success. In the 2000s, he chose a string of really bad action movies and rom-coms, and he was always in the tabloids for stupid reasons, while his Good Will Hunting co-writer Matt Damon kind of stayed out of the press, and he chose his roles more wisely. He even got his own action franchise, The Bourne Identity.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
While Affleck's Jack Ryan series and Daredevil series kind of fizzled before they even got started. So people had this idea of Ben Affleck in their head. So he was usually typecast in a certain kind of role. And, you know, they thought that he was like the guy who only acted for a paycheck, or that he was a better director than an actor. So his casting as Batman seemed like a stunt, like Warner Brothers cast the biggest name recognition that they could. But think about why Ben Affleck chose this project. I mean, he had 2 Oscars, and he'd already tried out a superhero franchise that failed. So he wouldn't have taken on Batman vs. Superman if he wasn't invested creatively in Zack Snyder's vision. And then Warner Brothers made Snyder cut that movie to ribbons. I don't think the extended edition is that great. I mean, it's still a mess that doesn't understand Superman, but Affleck's Batman is given the room to develop and breathe in this space. Matt Goldberg from Collider points out that overcrowding also hurt Affleck's Batman. He says, you have Affleck trying to make the role his own while also sharing the screen with other superheroes, so he never really gets to take full ownership of the character. And then the public image of Affleck took a hit. We had sad Batman memes, sad Ben press junket memes, Martha memes, which were deserved, but whatever. I mean, no wonder he decided to not direct the Batman solo movie. He was sick of people only asking him about Batman.
When I was doing this movie, it took me 2 years to get it together, but nobody ever asked me where's Live by Night. You know, they asked me, it's Batman, Batman, Batman.
But worst of all, Affleck's take on Batman will always be overshadowed by another performance, the Affleck from 2017's Justice League. You can really see that Affleck was not on board for this vision of the movie. I mean, all of his jokes land flat.
Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
And yet, even in those reshoots, he still has enough gravitas to pull off his role as the leader.
Save one. What? Save one person.
So I think time is going to be kind to Ben Affleck's Batman. He and Zack Snyder swung for the fences and tried to give fans something they hadn't seen before. And I hope that more creators are able to do that and to keep reinventing this character the way he deserves. To borrow another line from ScreenCrush's Matt Singer, Ben Affleck was a good Batman in bad Batman movies. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.